In a world of kingdoms where classes define your status, there is a class called Heavy Knight focused on defense, a tank that draws enemy attacks to protect allies. However, compared to other defensive classes, it lacks versatility due to poor offensive skills, making it a sadly flawed class. In a scene change, we meet our protagonist, a young boy named Alima, in a noble family's mansion. We see him sit down excitedly to read a book, but it's mentioned that whenever he learned or saw something new, he felt he already knew it. For a few seconds, he faces himself against various monsters. However, above all, he has a showdown with a fierce swordmaster while two others appear, a spear warrior and a jester. Back in reality, several years have passed, and Alima is about to perform the vital ritual of divine blessing as the heir of the Edba. Among those present is his father, who suggests he shouldn't worry. After all, he is his son. Thus, the priest begins the ritual. With a magical seal, he surrounds Alima's body and then exclaims, "Baptism, a divine spell that will grant our protagonist a class." Alima thinks he has experienced this before and tries to remember when, perhaps before he was born. He then recalls becoming obsessed with an online virtual reality game called Magic World, and this world is exactly the same. Amazed to realize he has just reincarnated, he assumes he will be victorious in this life since he knows the game. Therefore, he hopes to be lucky enough to get his favorite class, considered the most overpowered in the game. As he expresses his wish, the ritual concludes and Alima opens his parameters, discovering he got the class he wanted, Heavy Knight. Very excited, he tells his father, but upon hearing this, his father overreacts, asking if he meant Swordmaster. Our protagonist doesn't understand the reactions of those around him, but then Alima realizes the huge mistake he made. Due to the shock of his past memories, he confused how the realistic world of Magic World works. In this place, simple and powerful classes are praised for their rapid growth in stats, but those like Heavy Knights who take too long to grow are looked down upon. Because no one has tracked class progress well, Alima feels nervous, but his father takes his hand to confirm what he said. Seeing his Heavy Knight class, he demands to know why his son has something so pathetic. On top of that, his stats are low across the board, and his attacks are nothing special, labeling it a defective class. Alima asks him to calm down and tries to explain the advantages, like the huge health and defense points that no one else has. However, his father doesn't care about any of that and hits his son in disgust. Everyone watches in fear, the only good thing being that it didn't happen in public, as it would be the family's greatest shame. Then they hear footsteps approaching the hall, a black-haired woman in armor with red eyes. Everyone comments on how beautiful she is, though some wonder who she is. They tell us she is the daughter of the Zedbag's secondary family, a childhood friend of Alima. Due to status issues, she and Alima haven't spoken in 5 years, but she came to perform the divine blessing ritual. The king allows her to proceed, but this gives Alima a bad feeling. When the ritual begins, everyone falls silent, and when it ends, Malice sees her stats, realizing she got the Swordmaster class. This shocks everyone, even more so when Malice apologizes to Alima for taking all his talent. This was his bad feeling, that the daughter of a secondary family would get what should be his, worsening his father's attitude. But the opposite happens, as he immediately praises Malice for her class, declaring that from now on she will be his daughter and the future heir. To make matters worse, Malice laughs at Alima, saying he could never bear the burden of being her heir. With that, the king orders Alima to leave. After this huge disappointment, he no longer considers him his son, as a Heavy Knight only brings shame to the Zedbag. Everyone present sides with the king and Malice, praising his wise decision and leaving Alima alone. He tries to reason with his father, explaining that with his class he could be the strongest of all, but he refuses to listen, ordering him to get out and never show up again, warning him not to repeat his surname or he will be executed. With that, he leaves with Malice, who, like a real witch, keeps laughing in his face. Later, Alima is thrown out of the mansion. The butler apologizes for doing nothing and gives him some coins to survive, while Malice watches him from the window. Yes, a real disgrace. In a scene change, we find ourselves in the city of Rondal, a place known for being full of adventurers. Among the various groups, we see a famous blonde named Till. On the other hand, there's a small, very charismatic jester, excited to take on missions. However, the other two members of her group, a redhead and an albino, treat her with disdain, which discourages the jester. At the same time, our protagonist arrives in the city. After renting a room, he sits on his bed thinking about how terrible his father is for making his life hell. In the end, he lost his home, his family, and his life, but looking on the bright side, he remembers he still has the Heavy Knight class, the strongest one in this world. After thinking about this, he inspects his surroundings, realizing that the history of this world, its environment, and even the city are nothing like the game. Because of this, he decides to investigate further. First, he tests his class and skills. He checks his stats, hoping the Heavy Knight is still overpowered. One by one, he reviews the panels, confirming everything is exactly the same. Then he thinks about the skill tree, explaining that it helps decide which skill branches to invest in, and right now he has 5 skill points left, which are the initial bonus points given upon obtaining a class, plus 1 more per level. He even mentions it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that assigning them determines a person's fate. He mentions there are 2 types of skills, fixed ones for each class and those randomly assigned when creating your character. Among the skills he can choose, the Heavy Armor Oath is the only fixed skill, considered the worst tree for the Heavy Knight. However, it's actually decently strong but somewhat difficult to use, and many of its skills have limited applications. On the other hand, Defensive Boost is a pretty useful tree, but it doesn't grant any skills, though it does increase defense. Finally, there's Basic Fencing, which evolves into Advanced Fencing with special items, but only when it's maxed out. Without overthinking, he assigns the 5 skill points to the Heavy Armor Oath, immediately leveling up that tree, gaining 10 more defense points and a new skill, Wall Reflection. Ilima gets excited seeing this, saying everything will work out. In a scene change, we see him well-equipped in the forest's depths, determined to start his life as a knight. He ventures into the woods, but after several minutes of walking, he arrives at a beautiful lake with a relaxing view. After relaxing his gaze for a few seconds, he decides to continue along the different paths in the forest until he suddenly hears something moving in the bushes. A frog jumps out from the bush. When he sees it, Ilima checks its stats, but at that moment the frog lunges to attack him. He prepares by sheathing his sword, but he doesn't use it. Instead, he activates his Wall Reflection skill, creating a barrier that defends him and attacks the frog, easily taking it down. This way, he levels up from level 1 to level 2. We're told that Wall Reflection is a common skill that nullifies any enemy attack as long as it's melee, and it deals damage equal to the user's defense. From the frog, he obtains a level 2 magic stone. It isn't worth much, but he keeps it just in case until he hears someone calling for help. Ilima runs to find them and immediately encounters the adventurer, also noticing that the forest is infested with frogs. In response, Ilima says he'll take care of it. The adventurer, who was running for his life, asks if he's sure he can handle them all, even imagining that Ilima is someone famous for being so confident. But he replies not at all, even admitting he just leveled up for the first time today. Hearing this takes all hope away from the adventurer, and obviously, how can you trust your life to someone much weaker than you? It makes no sense that a novice could defeat so many monsters, and even the heavy armor he's wearing won't protect him from them, exclaiming it's better to run while they can. Meanwhile, Ilima remains calm, mentioning that Wall Reflection isn't a perfect skill. As explained before, the damage the wall inflicts while defending is equal to the user's defense points, so your defense must be greater than the enemy's attack to defeat them. If not, the wall effect doesn't activate, leaving you unprotected. The adventurer keeps begging him to run until all the creatures launch an attack on Ilima. He mentions that Wall Reflection can be ineffective and dangerous against very powerful enemies or unknown creatures. However, being a reincarnated player from the game, he knows all the creatures. So surprisingly, Wall Reflection nullifies the attacks of several frogs, taking them down one by one. It turns out that with his game knowledge, he prepared in advance by boosting his defense with gear and bonuses from the tree, so now he can defeat dozens of frogs at once. They all fall before his powerful wall, and the adventurer obviously can't believe his eyes. Trembling, he asks how he managed to take on so many frogs and who the heck he is. Ilima replies with his name but stops when saying his last name, as he was told not to say it or he'd lose his head, so he says he's Ilima, the Heavy Knight. The moment all the frogs disappear, Ilima's level jumps from 2 to 8, and he also gains the title of Unbreakable. To confirm it, he checks his stats, seeing the system works just like in Magic World. The adventurer he saved introduces himself as Eris and shares his story, saying he was told if he didn't reach level 3 on his own, he couldn't be accepted into any group, so he's grateful. Ilima replies that it's not necessary as he also leveled up, but he does plan to take the magic stones. Eris is fine with that and asks what he thinks about teaming up with him, since being low level, no one wants to trust him with solo missions, and his defensive class makes him less likely to be accepted. This reminds Ilima of his father's reaction upon discovering his class, but to Eris, he's someone incredible, and believes they can change the others' minds. However, Amos prefers to go solo. Eris doesn't quite understand, since it's clear his class is defense, and leveling up alone will be tough. He explains that defensive classes are better when they draw enemy attacks and protect allies, but if he drags allies along, he'll have to share experience, which doesn't fit his leveling plan. Eris looks confused, and as they look up, they notice something strange lurking. Suddenly, a giant spider drops from the trees and charges at them. Imus checks its stats and realizes it's an errand dive, doubling its current level. Seeing the clear disadvantage, Imus thinks of ways to neutralize it, but none of his defenses seem useful. What bad luck they have! At that moment, Eris stands up and, despite his fear, offers to buy some time. Imus notices this and reassures him as he approaches the monster. With Eris's shouts, Imus opens his stats and upgrades his branch with the points he earned. He gains the disarm skill, reducing an enemy's attack by 20% when he hits. The spider lunges at him, but Elymas dodges. The spider rolls, bouncing off trees before crashing down with its legs. Elymas evades the attack and mentions he knows its attack patterns. The spider raises a leg and slams it down, casting a spell with a magic circle. It prepares a second spell and targets our hero with a poisonous bolt. Imus decides to tank it. The spider fires and pushes him back slightly, but at that moment Amos uses disarm, cutting one of its eyes. The cut doesn't hurt the spider, but it should reduce its attack. Aris, worried, shouts for him to dodge, but it's too late. Imus stands still and takes the full impact of the claw. Aris watches in despair, but through the smoke Imus walks out unharmed. He explains that the poisonous bolt costs 7 magic points, the claw 5 points, leaving him with 4 magic points, so now the spider can only fight up close. His next plan is to create distance, stand firm, wait for the spider to attack, and use wall reflection to win. After defeating it, his level rises from 8 to 12. Eris again asks what the heck he is, since he just saw him defeat the spider alone. However, poor Elymas ends up poisoned, so Eris takes him to the city. They say goodbye there. The hero goes to rest but has nightmares about his father and wakes up remembering how Malice scorned him. The next day, Amos goes to the Rodalm Adventurers Guild to register. Nearby, other adventurers hear him. One laughs when he hears he's a heavy knight, but Elymas ignores him. After registering, we learn there are 7 adventurer ranks from F to S, and you need rank E to enter a dungeon. The other adventurers laugh, thinking he's looking for a party. The receptionist, a bit uncomfortable, explains that not many groups want squires, so it will take time to find one for him. Elymas reassures her and asks to exchange his magic stones. Seeing such a large amount of rare stones, everyone is surprised but assumes he's cheating. Elymas ignores them, feeling ready to start his new life with funds for his adventure. First, he asks the receptionist if there are any promotion missions available, to which she hesitantly replies yes. We then switch to the cemetery, where a group of adventurers is gathered, including our protagonist and an old bearded man. The old man questions whether our protagonist really defeated an Aryan dive and plans to teach him a lesson that night. Elymas, overhearing, stays silent, holding back laughter, thinking he can't be that unlucky. Our protagonist, Elymas or Elma, tells us that an assault mission is a rare chance to level up and is just grateful to be allowed to help. The old man named Gotan is satisfied with this and puts everyone in motion. The one in the hat, named Tell, uses his tracking magic, detecting creatures in the area. He warns that there's a horde of 30 enemies and hopes this ability will grant him a promotion to rank E. He then turns to Elma, saying that his behavior has spread several rumors in the guild. The protagonist listens, but only to analyze his class. Tell is a red mage with good physical skills, able to learn attack and healing spells. Tell laments Elma's class, to which Elma replies he's proud of who he is, making Tell uncomfortable. Yes, they still don't know. The protagonist adds that red mages are hard to manage, they seem capable of anything, but in the game, they were overshadowed. Naturally, people in this world prefer an easy-to-use class. After this, Gotham reviews the mission. The horde of undead is led by a necrophage head. Since Gotham is rank D, he'll handle it. However, the others must fend for themselves. Everyone is worried about this, as the head is around level 30 and its breath can revive corpses, but Gotham is around level 40, so he should win. However, novices thinking about defeat and a leader who doesn't care can be a problem, so everyone has an 80% chance of survival. For this reason, Elma asks Gotham for better instructions. First, because they can't rely on the mission report. If something unexpected happens, it will be too late. Gotham gets annoyed at being given orders, but the protagonist speaks for everyone, saying they don't trust his low level, and that's why they ask for instructions. Reluctantly, the bald man agrees, but at that moment, the blonde intervenes, approaching our protagonist and saying only defective classes like his need that. The other adventurers don't intervene, but they murmur that they also needed it. Just then, as that guy laughs at our protagonist, Gotham and he notice an anomaly. We then see the undead emerging from the graves, and among them appears a huge monster. Seeing this, the blonde falls to the ground, paralyzed with fear. Yes, and just a moment ago he was talking big. Gotham shouts for him to get up and clear the way with Paul. Meanwhile, our protagonist examines the giant monster and orders the other adventurers to deal with the minions. The adventurers flatly refuse, fearing they could die if surrounded. The heavy knight empathizes with them. After all, none of them had faced a horde of monsters, especially terrifying undead, without instructions. With zombies appearing non-stop, Elymas orders them to form teams of 3 to protect each other. In response, the adventurers agree, but ask our protagonist what he'll do. Elma replies that he'll draw the zombies in until they reorganize. One of them questions whether he can do it alone since he's a slow, heavy knight. At that moment, a wight appears behind him, but with surprising skill, Elma dodges and uses fury. The white lunges at him, but one-on-one, Elmas repels and disarms it. Following this, he uses wall reflection, sending the zombies flying. Afterward, he tells them not to worry, he'll attract the hordes, but if anything unexpected happens, they should alert the others immediately. Thus, he continues digging at the whites. The novices watch as Sombrados faces the horde alone and even levels up to 16. Elivas is confident using repel, and fighting them proves very effective. Seeing his stats, he confirms how fast his level rises, though his skill is so impressive that the newbies fear him more than the whites. This is how the newbies start fighting and take down most of them. They ask Elima if they should help Mr. Gotham, but the Proto isn't crazy. He knows the head is above their level and will let Gotham handle it. Then we see him fight. The head can only engage in close combat, and Gotham sweeps him across the cemetery, landing a solid axe strike. The head falls to the ground until it lets out a scream, raising the dead. Gurdon orders Tell and Paul to draw the whites, but now they act like cowards, their fear tied to getting caught in Goten's fight. Meanwhile, he dodges an attack from the head, then runs in to use his rock breaker on it, making the head writhe in pain. Elma checks the stats, discovering that just one more hit is needed to defeat the monster. However, the whites begin to surround Gotham. One of the adventurers asks if they should attack the whites, to which Elma replies no. At that moment, we see the big-headed monster indiscriminately devouring the whites nearby. Using the stats, Elma sees the monster's health recovering, realizing it has the ability to consume corpses, a very strange skill for necrophage heads. But something doesn't add up, as it shouldn't need to eat so many undead to heal. At that instant, the big head rises and lets out a powerful scream. Seeing Godon charge in, Elma shouts for him to get back. However, the bald guy with a ponytail ignores her. Just as he was about to reach the big head, it releases a wave of energy, causing its body to become more muscular, signifying the evolution from necrophage head to crazed head. Yes, things just got serious. Everyone is stunned while our protagonist wonders what the hell to do. We're told that evolution is a rare phenomenon under certain conditions, mainly referring to monsters that awaken latent abilities and transform into other species to escape tough situations, something not common in Magic World, so they can only say they had bad luck. At that moment, Elma realizes something and shouts for Gutan to move aside. However, the old man has no time and takes the monster's breath full force. Seeing this, Elma orders him to distract the giant. The blonde is paralyzed with fear, replying that if he attacks, he'll die. Elma reminds him that if Gotham falls, they're all doomed. At that moment, Gotham takes a powerful hit that sends him flying, and the paralysis from the breath intensifies, leaving him on the ground unable to act. He watches as the monster approaches, preparing to deliver the final blow. Before that happens, Elma intervenes, blocking the attack and orders Till to find Gotham and cure his paralysis. Till shouts that he can't, as instead of unlocking that skill, he chose to boost his attack. Elma, obviously disappointed with his terrible setup, still orders him to get Gotham to safety and heal him. With that said, she starts studying the monster and its abilities, concluding that she just needs to hold on until Gotham can rejoin the fight. Without further ado, she grabs the monster's attention and prepares to fight. The other adventurers watch in awe as she's just a rank F adventurer. One of them, assuming they'll lose, tells the others they should escape. We return to our protagonist who, hearing all this, is glad they left, as he won't have to protect anyone. At that precise moment, the big head lets out a powerful scream, reminding our protagonist that if he fails even once, he'll die. The head bulks up and raises its fist to attack Elma. She dodges with a jump and retreats, then runs through the cemetery. The head immediately chases after her but stops when it realizes she's gone. In the cemetery, it sees no one, but Elma appears running behind the graves. The head follows her with its gaze but keeps losing sight of her. That's when the Proto throws a stone as a distraction. The head turns at the noise and Elma rushes in to attack from behind. The head reacts immediately and tries to hit her. Elma saves herself with a jump and gets into a guard position, but now the head is gone, looking around and concentrating to find her. However, the head seems to rise from the ground behind him. Elma reacts and turns, but this time the head manages to hit him, sending him bouncing across the floor and crashing into several tombstones. Everyone watches this, and Elma admits the level difference is terrifying. Our protagonist falls to his knees, bracing himself with his sword. Under different circumstances, he would have chosen to avoid it, but now he must take risks to win and survive. Even though he's scared, the thrill of being pushed to the limit excites him, and that's how he stands up again, immediately breaking the ground. An adventurer asks if a heavy knight can really keep up with such a monster. His companion replies that it's nonsense and that this miracle will end sooner or later. Elma attacks and dodges, but it doesn't do any damage. He knows better than anyone that the head can hit him at any moment, and he must counterattack to avoid it. That said, he uses all his points to raise his basic swordsmanship to level 5, gaining Precise Strike, a skill that lets him deal a strong blow to high defense targets. The fight resumes, the head attacks him, but he defends with repel, getting close and dodging to position himself behind, using precise strike across its back. Everyone watches in awe and Elma sees what happens next, noticing the monster is angrier. The protagonist explains that precise strike sacrifices sword reach for damage, and it's considered a bad skill. However, for a class with high defense and low damage, it's useful, but it still won't be enough to defeat the creature. The protagonist's turn ends here, as Gudon has healed and appears using the dragon-slaying slash, finally finishing off the head. The adventurers celebrate the victory while Elma breathes a sigh of relief and levels up 7 times. Gotham, on the other hand, reflects on how unusual it was to see a rank F adventurer survive against such a monster. Elma thanks Gotham for saving them, but the old man remains silent and, after a few seconds, apologizes for his incompetence. As a token of gratitude, he offers the complete drop from the monster. Elma looks at the magic stone, assuming it must be worth a fortune. He asks Gudon if he's sure. The old man replies yes, but upon seeing the shield dropped by the monster, he becomes thoughtful. Elma asks if he wants it. Gotham declines, reaffirming his decision to give everything to Elma, though he can't help but want to see the item's description. When they check the information, Elma discovers it has the ability to block attacks and enhance his next strike, but it's also worth 3,000 gold, which catches the bald man's attention. Later, Elma talks to Gotham about his promotion. The old man reassures him, promising to tell the guild to promote him, and if anyone opposes, he'll give them a good hit. Yes, this old man is violent. Just then, Teal approaches, asking about his promotion. With him, Gotham changes his tone and points out how cowardly he was for freezing in fear. Disappointed by his cowardice, he orders him to go back to doing missions. Yes, how shameless to ask for a promotion when he hasn't done anything. With no other choice, Till leaves with his head down, but before he goes, he glances at our protagonist. It's dawn, so the guys head back to the city. At the guild, the receptionist hands them the reward for completing the assault. It starts with a bag of 130,000 gold, then another of 200,000 for the 10 magic stones, but finally she hands over 600,000 more for that evolved necrophage headstone. Seeing this amount, the other adventurers are astonished. The old man laughs, congratulating Elma for winning so much. Upon hearing this, the other adventurers question whether that heavy knight cheated. Even the receptionist asks Gudon to confirm the information. Elma simply ignores the comments, but Gudon loses his patience and, slamming the table, shouts at everyone if they dare question his decision to approve Elma's promotion. After this, they leave the guild, and Elma thanks Gudon for all the support. The old man accepts his gratitude and says goodbye without further ado. Now free, Elma wonders what else he will do, now that he has obtained rank E. You can go to dungeons to earn more gold, but he mentions that the wall's reflection increases with more defense and is only good at the start. So now she should focus on leveling up, but if she really wants to be strong, she needs to find the grimoire called the Fang of Latent Madness. He explains that grimoires help gain skills, but they're hard to find, though worth it. If you combine her heavy armor oath with the grimoire, both would max out her defensive class, turning the heavy knight from a defender into a human weapon. So the grimoire, Fang of Latent Madness, is key to her class's potential. As Elma continues her journey, she starts searching for her grimoire in this city. Entering an adventurer's item shop filled with potions and more, Elma asks for 3 healing potions costing 72,000 gold coins, a much higher price than in the game. On the way, she asks the shopkeeper where she can buy grimoires since she hasn't seen any stores. She mentions that without that grimoire, continuing to fight with her class would be like playing a tutorial forever. However, the shopkeeper looks confused and asks if she just received her class, explaining that buying and selling grimoires is prohibited. While people can use the grimoire they acquire, the Adventurer Guild gives everything to the nobility and the church. This crushes Elma, as grimoires are hard to get, and it would be normal for someone to sell them. In the game, nobles are also very important, but in this world they are stingy, banning their sale, making it likely that her family, Ed Bag, monopolizes the rarest grimoires, so she'll never get one. However, the shopkeeper feels sorry for her and gives her the address of a shop that sells items looted from corpses. The guild knows they exist but turns a blind eye due to an agreement they have, plus the goods from the dead don't end up with their families but are sent to the nobles, who pay almost nothing for a grimoire that cost an adventurer their life. Elma feels disgusted hearing this, and before leaving, the shopkeeper asks her not to tell anyone, making Elma even more determined never to mention she's a noble. With that, she explores the whole city until she reaches a shop. Upon entering, she is engulfed in suffocating smoke, but after taking a look, she confirms there are grimoires in that place. Unexpectedly, an old woman appears and advises her to leave, making it clear that the broken grimoire shop isn't for beginners like her, though she still allows her to browse the books. Elma picks up a basic archer grimoire and, when she evaluates it, discovers it costs 2,500,000, much more than in the game. She realizes its value has increased due to the nobles hoarding them. At that moment, the old woman tells her she sells it for 3,000, leaving our protagonist stunned, but the old woman explains it's her pay for doing something so risky. She thinks maybe she could sell her demon shield, but doubts it would be enough to buy such a rare grimoire. Yeah, I mean, she has no money, but it's not that serious. After checking almost all the grimoires, she finds one which is the essential tree for her class. Excited about this, she approaches the lady and asks for the price. The old woman asks for 50,000, leaving our protagonist speechless. With no other choice, Elma asks her to hold it until she can return with the money. The old woman agrees without issue, but in return, she asks for an additional 5,000. Yes, it's all business for this old woman. Back on the streets, Elma thinks about how to get that money, since it's like 60 times what she earned from the head mission. She mentions that the only ones wanting the fang of latent madness are heavy knights and death-fighting addicts, and given how rare it is, they are absurdly expensive. The first way to earn money is by farming strange chests in dungeons, but for that, she has to face enemies constantly, and a heavy knight isn't good at that. The second way is to farm weak monsters, but that would take too long. Other options include improving her swordsmanship or getting grimoires that develop her skills, but those would become useless once she gets the grimoire, wasting her points and leaving her more frustrated. She also considers that heavy knights are in low demand, but thanks to the head mission, she has gained some recognition, and maybe someone would want to team up with her. It's then that she hears an adventurer bragging about finding a bloody sword he plans to sell for 2,000. In this adventurer's group is a jester, who, without her, they wouldn't have gotten the sword. However, the other two in the team ignore him. The knight knows each one's class, like swordsman, thief, and the jester as Pierrot. The swordsman stops to remind him that they got this sword after going to the dungeon many times, so he doubts it's because of her that they got it. The jester gives him some credit, but asks them to keep exploring dungeons to see how much she has really helped. However, the swordsman tells Rush that he won't be part of the team anymore and they won't pay her either. Yeah, what a bunch of jerks. The jester pales at this, highlighting that, just like them, she risked her life fighting up front, asking that at least they give her a 10th. The swordsman thinks about it, replying that even if she risks it, her attacks do nothing because she only distracts some attacks and nothing more, calling her a nuisance. Hearing this, the jester is about to cry, but replies that if she has no more skills, it's because she allocated her points just as he told her. She asks if it isn't a bit cruel to say that now that they've made money. The swordsman approaches her and disdainfully says his only problem is reducing her share because she's useless. He adds that those were just suggestions. He never forced her to allocate her skill points, so he can't believe she's demanding payment without contributing anything. Elma, who was listening closely, mentions that a bad setup in a fight like this is common in Magic World. Even if you assign skill points to support your group, if things change, it all loses meaning. At that moment, Klein throws her 100,000 coins and tells her to get lost, not wanting to see someone so pathetic anymore. Despite everything, Pierrot apologizes to them, but the guy doesn't accept it and just wishes her luck with her next group. After hearing the whole conversation, Elma wonders about the skill tree that Pierrot improved. She remembers Pierrot saying that thanks to her skills, they were able to get that bloody sword. Thinking more seriously, she questions if she really has that skill tree, because if she does, she's completely broken. Knowing this, she chases after Pierrot and with a perverted grin asks to form a group with him, which leaves both Pierrot and her ex-teammates stunned. The bad guy begs her to join, offering to split the profits 80-20. Rush replies that 20% is too little, even though she was begging for 10% before. However, Elma explains that the 20% is for him and the 80% is for her. The ex-group hears this as nonsense, but before they can continue negotiating, Rush shyly asks if he can let go of her hand. Yes, understandably, just look at her face. But then he intervenes, asking Elma who the hell she is. The protagonist introduces himself and explains that he heard the argument they had to kick her out of the group, and since Rush is free, he wants to recruit her now. The swordsman laughs at this, calling him crazy, saying Rush is terrible in combat and can't level up the usual way. Elma doesn't care about this because she knows the other advantages Rush has. The swordsman is annoyed by her stubbornness, but will let her keep Rush since, in the end, Rush has been nothing but a burden to everyone. However, Elma replies that she doesn't need his permission to take her with him. This annoys the swordsman, making Rush and the thief worry about what will happen. The swordsman approaches and stands in front of Elma. Pointing with his sword, he asks her what level she is and if she's with anyone else. The protagonist firmly replies that he's a level 23 heavy knight, rank E, and has no group. Given his level, the swordsman understands he has experience and should know how useless Rush is, especially since she's level 13, but Elma repeats that she doesn't care. The thief named Rice asks Clan to come over, commenting that it's strange for a rank E to want to keep Rush, suspecting she might have some great skills they haven't seen. However, the swordsman doubts Rush is useful and doesn't believe a heavy knight could reach that level without a group. Plus, leaving her with someone else would be best so no one suspects she was kicked out. Elma hears all this quietly and feels more at ease knowing they don't suspect him, as long as Rush accepts Elma's offer. In this emotional moment, Clean applauds Rush for her new group, and while kicking the coins on the ground, tells her it's a parting gift. The jester was about to pick them up, but Elma stops her and tells Clint to collect them, saying it's rude, and calling it a gift is a bad joke. With that said, she tells Rush it's time to go, but the jester hesitates since it's quite a lot of money. Elma advises her not to, as she'd be owing a favor to those lowlifes. This annoys Klein, who simply insults them as they leave. When our protagonists walk away, Klein is about to leave too, but Race asks if he can keep the coins. Klein immediately turns around and, picking each one up, yells that they are his. Yes, quite the miser. After this, our protagonists go to a restaurant where the jester takes the opportunity to thank him once again. She also asks if the reason he defended her was that he fell in love with her. He mentions that he thought about it and, after a while, concluded that he fell in love with her at first sight. After all, he can't find another explanation for why someone so strong would notice her without the conclusions he draws. While fantasizing about his possible infatuation, he tells her they could start as friends and then take the next step. At that moment, Elma interrupts and asks if she has the skill tree Great Fortune. This leaves the jester confused as she doesn't know how to respond. In a scene change, we see them in the forest. The protagonist explains that in Magic World, dungeons are the nightmares of the sleeping creation god, Alxarez, who created many gods and worlds from nothing for eternity but ended up going mad and was sealed by the gods he created. His nightmares have affected reality, creating portals that spawn monsters and aberrant creatures. As he explains this, they reach the entrance of a dungeon. Nervously, the jester shows her stats and asks if he really wants her in his group. Being honest, she asks him to leave her as soon as possible, as she doesn't want him to get his hopes up only to be disappointed. Showing her dice-stabbing skill, she says she can't even get the highest bonus on her attack and regrets not choosing crazy acrobatics or investing points in offensive boosts. However, for Elma, it's not a problem, repeating that she needs her. Rush, feeling nervous, asks what he means because she's not good at reading between the lines, and if he doesn't say what he wants, she won't understand. Elma makes it clearer. They will get 30 million gold coins and she'll level up to 30, which only confuses her more. With that said, they stand at the dungeon portal and are transported to another place. They say the recommended level to enter is 50, but Elma already knows the monsters that will appear. As they move forward, the protagonist explains they won't put themselves in danger and will stroll through the lower floors until they level up. The plan is for Elma to attract the monsters while Rush attacks them from a distance with her iron-purple knife. She tries not to regret it, as to make her feel more secure, Elma bought her a pretty expensive knife. In the market, it costs 550,000 gold coins, boosting her attack by 3, with the detail that when inflicting damage, it reduces the enemy's defense by 15%. So Rush feels quite confident and will do whatever it takes to ensure the protagonist doesn't regret it. As they advance, Elma spots something like a stuffed toy slowly moving toward them. It's a patched bear at level 20 with 41 health and 17 magic. The jester mentions it makes her want to hug them, but seeing its level, she loses the urge. Elma says Rush can take 2 hits, but if one is critical, she could die. However, the protagonist could stop it if he knocks it off balance when it attacks. The jester asks how he knows so much and if he likes bears, to which the protagonist replies it's not because of that. The battle is about to begin. He will block its attacks while Rush strikes its blind spots, but she needs to watch out for its claws and fangs. With that explained, they take their positions, and Elma uses shadow steps to prevent the bear from moving. The jester takes the chance to get closer but doesn't notice it's dangerous, feeling a bit sorry for it. Just then, the little bear transforms and charges at Elma. Our protagonist easily neutralizes it and tells the jester to finish it off. The jester attacks with everything until she finally defeats the monster, but when she sees it didn't drop anything, she panics, thinking she'll be kicked out of the group. Yes, the jester is already a bit traumatized. Elma reassures her, clarifying they only killed it for experience and will keep doing that for a while. Just then, another cuddly bear appears, so they continue exploring. After a few bears, they ruin 2 bear shields. Overflowing with joy, Rush asks if he isn't glad he brought her along. Elma replies that she is and says they'll take them, but internally she can't help but think how unusual this is since that loot doesn't appear often. However, remembering Rush's special skill, Cat's Paw, increases luck by 500%, she doesn't rule out the possibility. Still, she can't believe how foolish Clint was for not realizing that all this time, assuming he was used to a high loot probability. Once again, the jester asks if she was helpful. Elma confirms it and thanks her for teaming up with him. The jester gets excited and asks if he really wanted those bear shields, because if so, they'll collect 8 more. Elma reassures her, saying she's already leveled up enough. Rush opens her stats and sees she's reached level 20. Elma congratulates her and says her new goal is to hunt a golden frog. The jester ponders Elma's high goal while he explains that frogs were the first monsters he defeated when he was exiled. Frogs are the most common monsters to find, so they are very weak and also the most recognized in Magic World. There are many variants of these monsters, but their goal is to find the golden one. Given the situation, they only plan to farm what they can in this dungeon. Although the golden frog is very rare to find, the time spent searching for it is worth it, as it usually drops valuable items. Another advantage is that its attack and magic are very low, even though it can be at a high level, and to make things easier, it has no offensive skills, so it can't defend itself at all. In other words, it's weak in combat, not to mention it can't fight, yet the experience and loot it drops are quite valuable, making this monster unique in its class. He also mentions that several special monsters similar to the frog are sought after, and in the world of Magic Wars they are affectionately nicknamed Golden Toads. For many players, the most fun part of the game was hunting them. For Elma, finding the frog will be easy since they usually appear on the mid-levels of the Angel's toy box, and she knows all the monsters that can show up there. Rush interrupts to tell her he's heard about the golden frogs too, and the rumor that one frog could sustain you for years. He heard this from a couple of adventurers, but he also learned that their speed makes them impossible to catch, and even if you try to hurt them, they seem unaffected. Sometimes people chase them from a distance, but they end up surrounded by monsters, so many adventurers likely died trying to catch them. Knowing this, Elma remembers the most important thing. This world isn't like the game. If someone dies, they don't respawn, so many prioritize survival, which is why most don't risk finding the frog. Although the frog doesn't defend itself, its speed and defense stats are extremely high, and they're immune to elemental attacks, status effects, and negative effects. Basically, they're indestructible. With all this, Rush asks what they can do. He remembers that his knife is effective against high defense monsters, but even that wouldn't make it limp, adding that he won't be able to get close due to its speed. Elma agrees, saying the frog's speed is 67 points and its defense is 200, so the extra 15% attack from the knife won't help at all. Even though the Pierrot class of the Jester is fast, the frog is twice as fast, while Elma is 3 times faster. Not even her wall reflection would deal a point of damage. With everything they've said, the Jester asks if she really thinks this is possible. However, Elma replies not to worry, as she already has a plan, because its high defense is also its weak point, to which the Jester asks if she really has any attack that can hurt it. Elma simply smiles and tells her she can count on her. The Jester asks if she will really take care of it. Elma says yes, after all, she should have 8 skill points from leveling up just now, which she'll assign to the Crazy Acrobatics branch, gaining 2 key skills for her strategy. The Jester thanks her for having so much faith in her, but doubts she can do it. Just as she says this, a gift box jumps toward them. Elma reacts and reveals the attack of that thing. After this, she tells Rush to run immediately. The Jester questions if they shouldn't finish it off. Elma replies no, since it's not their target, and besides, they'd end up attracting more of those monsters. As they escape, the Jester asks if they really should focus only on the golden frog, since with their skills and knowledge they could defeat other monsters to level up. Elma explains that the best option at their current level is to hunt golden frogs, making sure they aren't being chased. Elma reveals she already knew they wouldn't find one right away, so she's sure if they search all day, they might find 2. Hearing this, the Jester is surprised, as she can't believe how rare they are. Elma assures her that they are worth their time and effort, but if she starts feeling worried or frustrated, she shouldn't hesitate to let him know. The Jester calms him, saying she only asked out of curiosity. With determination, she exclaims they'll hunt 1,000 golden frogs. Yeah? As if that's possible? Just as she says this, she spots a golden frog. Elma is amazed to see they found one, as it was supposed to be much harder. The Jester gets nervous. Turning to Elma, she tells him with difficulty that they found one. Elma reassures her that they need to stay calm if they want to defeat it. So the Jester starts to breathe in and out. Elma reminds her that she used her 10 points to raise Crazy Acrobatics to level 10, gaining 2 key skills to win. In Elma's plan, he will wait for the golden frog to turn around, but Rush needs to make it turn toward him, so it all depends on her, which increases the poor Jester's stress. To help her calm down, Elma mentions it doesn't matter much if she makes a mistake, so the Jester breathes again and focuses on doing her part. They note that the golden frog can sense enemies from 4 meters away, and the hallways in this dungeon are 4 meters wide, making it impossible to surround it. But there's a detail. The frog only detects you if you walk on the ground. This is where the Jester steps in. As with acrobatic steps, she can run along the walls and ceiling, coming from above to stand in front of the frog. Upon seeing her, the frog tries to escape forward, but the Jester blocks its path with Dope Illusion, creating 4 clones of herself. Since the hallway is narrow, the frog can't pass by and can't confront 4 people. While the frog is immune to blindness or hallucinations, Dopey Illusion bypasses that rule since it doesn't directly affect the frog. However, the frog gets confused and can't tell which one is real, revealing its weakness. Cowardice, and Elma's shadow ability works against it, but it all depends on the protagonist hitting it with his low speed. His shadow is 50 centimeters long, so to gain an advantage, he pulls out a magic stone he got when buying Rush's knife, which emits a bright light that extends both their shadows, allowing Elma to trap the frog. The jester celebrates that they've trapped it, but now wonders how they're going to kill it. Elma replies that with critical hits, a perfect attack that nearly doubles normal damage and ignores 50% of the enemy's defense. The jester imagines hitting it until the critical hits come, but her attacks don't deal much damage, repeating that she counts on him. Elma explains that to achieve critical hits, you need skill and luck, and for now, he can't attempt critical hits because he can't move. The jester reminds him that she hasn't landed any critical hits either. Elma acknowledges that it would be impossible with normal attacks, but now he has his original skill, Dice Stab. Hearing this, the jester recalls Klein's disdainful words, which affects her a bit. To understand better, Dice Stab is a skill that, as the name suggests, involves rolling a 6-sided die and grants an additional effect based on the result. Remembering this function, the jester and Elma get motivated and exclaim that they'll surely land a critical hit. As the jester tries her luck, Elma explains that if she rolls a 6, it would multiply her attack by 1.3, guaranteeing a critical hit, totaling 1.95 times the damage. Additionally, the 15% penetration from Iron Piercer stacks with the 50% penetration from a critical hit, meaning a 6 multiplies the attack by 1.95 and achieves about 65% penetration. Despite all this, the jester questions whether it will really work. Elma tells her that even if it's only useful in very specific situations or shines late, there's no class or skill that's useless, so he advises her not to be affected by others' opinions. With that said, he asks to borrow her power to keep moving forward as adventurers. The jester finally makes up her mind. Motivated by his words, she promises to give her all to not let him down. With that, we see her run towards the golden frog, and using Dice Stab, she achieves the maximum boost, landing a critical hit. With a single blow, the frog falls to the ground and drops its gems. The jester is left paralyzed in astonishment, as it really worked. At the same time, she levels up to 27 alongside Elma, who reaches level 30. Elma congratulates her for defeating the frog, but mentions that experience isn't the only good thing. There are also the items that monster drops upon death, though this only has a 50% chance. At that moment, the frog's body starts to disintegrate. The kids notice something strange inside, so the jester approaches, and when she does, they see it's a weapon, a shiny frog ornamental dagger with a description of attack plus 12, market price 17,000 gold coins. Obviously, upon seeing this, our protagonists scream with excitement at finding a shiny frog ornamental dagger on their first try. The jester looks at her pirate with the expensive item they've obtained and asks Elma how it can be worth 17,000, but the protagonist tells her to look closely as she missed counting a 0. The jester does her calculations, counting 1, 10 at 200,000 and 10,000, fainting at such an absurd amount since she had just been fighting over 2,000 and even with a discount. After calming down, she still can't believe they got this item on their first try and worriedly asks if carrying this makes them an easy target, so she stands up for Elma and her to sell it and run far away to a peaceful place. Elma laughs at her idea and thinks it's the best, but before leaving, he wants to hunt another one. So 3 hours pass where the jester tries to land another critical hit, but the 6 she needs just won't come up. Yes, what bad luck, until after a few attempts, she finally succeeds. Elma is happy to have gotten another dagger, and he levels up from 30 to 33, but the jester seems a bit strange. I imagine she's frustrated by how long it took to roll a 6, but what's really happening is that she's still processing having 34,000 gold, so she's starting to convulse. Yes, how exaggerated? I'd be happy. Once they have their dagger, they leave the area. Elma mentions that it would be best to think about how to use that money for the group. The jester agrees while continuing to tally the gold they've earned. They also think about distributing skill points. The jester mentions that with this second frog, she reached level 30 and shows her stats for Elma to decide for her, to which he suggests she shouldn't show them just like that. She replies that it's no problem for him since it was thanks to his help that she leveled up, so she doesn't mind if he exploits her or kicks her out of the group. Yes, this girl has no self-esteem, something the protagonist would never do, but at that moment, Rush changes his expression and looks the other way, saying he heard a voice. The jester turns and asks if he heard a baby crying a moment ago. Elma stays silent for a few seconds and then realizes what it is. It can only be a wandering. The jester jumps at this. Elma explains that a dungeon boss or dream boss is its heart, usually found deep within the dungeon, but sometimes it wanders around, which is called wandering. Elma reassures her, saying if they act right, they won't get involved, but they need to move away from the voice and run for the exit since the dream boss won't follow them outside. However, in that tense moment, they hear a person's cry for help. In the distance, they see two badly injured adventurers approaching, and the jester rushes to help while Elma watches, realizing he was naive to think this was just a game. And yes, this is clearly not a game. Those people's lives are at stake. The jester asks if he's sure since even he can't handle a level 50 dream boss. Elma reassures her, saying he knows the monster's nature and can buy them time. He also reminds her that as a heavy knight, his job is to draw the enemy's attention. The jester hesitates, but then the creature appears. They all freeze, watching as the monstrous being approaches, a tin knight. Elma gets ready so the jester can escape with the two. The adventurers thank him and move ahead, but the jester doesn't want to leave Elma. The tin knight is level 40 with half health, but its magic is full. Elma is grateful for the luck of facing it with half health, but the jester offers to help, saying they can take it down together. However, Elma insists she must escape, as the tin knight isn't the dream boss, just part of its limbs. The full body of the dream boss is about to arrive, and at that moment, two more knights appear. Elma promises to catch up once he buys some time, but the jester knows 3 level 40 monsters are too much for him and insists on staying. Elma can't waste more time and shouts for her to leave, saying she'll only be a hindrance in the fight. The jester apologizes and agrees to go, just asking him not to take too long. Elma is left alone with the 3 monsters. If it were just them, he would have let the others stay, but he couldn't do that with a dream boss lurking nearby. He admits telling Rush he would bring them to escape was a lie. The downside of a heavy knight is their slow speed. He might escape the 3 knights that don't attack from a distance, but against the dream boss it would be impossible, as its magic attacks could reach him. At that moment, the dream boss appears and Elma stands ready to face it. This dream boss is a level 50 embryo, with full health at 42 and magic at 60. For its level, those stats are low, but the real issue is they can't damage it. The embryo's defense is very high, and they can only hurt its eye with ranged attacks, which Elma doesn't have. However, this dream boss has a major weak point, allowing Elma to win even alone. So, Elma raises his heavy armor oath to level 27, gaining the new skill Shield Bash, provoking the embryo to face him. One of the guards charges at Elma, but he counters with the bash, slamming the toy against the wall. This skill pushes enemies with the shield, effective for separating a group. He then faces the remaining 2 toys, using Repel on one and Disarm on the other. However, just as he was about to do this, the Tin Knight retreats and gets surrounded. Yes, the Tin Knight baited our hero. This clearly confuses him, wondering if they are learning his moves. Remember that in Magic World, normal creatures couldn't adapt to shield attacks. While searching for a solution, the embryo finishes regenerating and instantly unleashes its Sylphid Slash. Elma can only brace for the attack, but the power is overwhelming. Lying on the ground, he feels his body unresponsive, a result of the stun. The Tin Knights close in, and just as they are about to deliver the final blow, Elma vanishes. It's Rush, who has returned to save him. But hey, if you've made it this far, comment the word shield to let me know you've reached the end. Here on screen, I leave you these 2 cool videos just like the person watching this video. See you next time. Take care, drink water, shower, and bye.